All right, so please can you introduce yourself, your name, age, and yeah.
My name's Rejwan Hussain. I'm 22 from an area called Hyde in Manchester. And yeah, I happen to fight. I'm a designer who happens to fight.
Yeah. So I just want to go back to your sort of early life. So at what age did you start fighting and how did you get into it?
Um, so it's quite funny how I got into it. So I used to always be a WWE guy.
Mm.
So I was always like into Brock Lesnar and all that shebang. So I saw Brock Lesnar basically get beat up by Cain Velasquez at the time. And then I was like, oh, okay, he's not the world champion. So then I've gone from that to UFC, and I've always been a fan of UFC. And then I used to do like a couple of sessions when I was 17, like just here and there, nothing serious. And then I joined Manchester top team when I was 19. And then after a couple of months there, I had my first fight in December. And that's pretty much from there. I'd like to say I enjoy fighting a lot, but I'm just taking it one step at a time. So when I first started training, I didn't envision myself actually fighting, and now I'm here now, and I've had about like six fights. So yeah, not all amateur, of course, but yeah, I've had six fights across like boxing, kickboxing, and MMA.
So you've had is it so six total fights across MMA and boxing, is it?
Yeah, MMA, boxing, and okay, I had one fight in kickboxing as well in Prague.
Oh, okay. So do you like remember first going to, the gym for the first time to train or the first training session you had? How different was that to anything else you had ever done up until that point?
Hmm. Um, well, I'd like to differentiate between like I used to go to a gym called Viva MMA, and then I went to Manchester Top Team, and the levels there were just like completely different. Where I've gone from training at Viva, and I was like, I felt really good about myself, I felt good about my abilities, and then I've gone to Manchester Top Team where I'm like the runt of the people, and I look around, and you know what I mean. There's upcoming superstars there, and you kind of look around or like this is what I want to be around. I want to be around people that are going to be future world champions. Um, and yeah, the first few sessions, if anything, the training sessions in itself weren't the hardest, and it wasn't like I was sweating loads, and it was just really tiresome. But it was more that it was very technical, which sort of caught me off guard. But yeah, I feel like I was taught a lot of concepts there, whereas sometimes you'll just get taught how to do things, whereas in Manchester you can get taught the concept in itself, which improves your whole MMA game.
Yeah. So how did your family react to you turning to the fight game and having all these fights? How did they react? Were they, pleased? Were they excited for you? Were they nervous?
Uh,
Uh,
I can't say my mum's that supportive. Like even my mum, she's got a bit of like a funny way of thinking about like fighting. Like when she sees me in the cage fighting, she's like, "What if they chucked you out the cage?" Like, and I'm like, "Mum, that would never happen." But yeah, in
yeah.
terms of um my family and themselves, like they support me a lot. My siblings, they come to my fight, and yeah, they support me a lot. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm taking one step at a time. So I'm still debating now. Like, am I willing to go pro, or is that too much? Or at the end of the day, at the moment, I'm just somebody who enjoys fighting. But to be a pro, I understand the levels, and I've seen the amount of focus and energy that it takes to become a pro. And at the moment, like the way I'm training now, like that's nowhere near the amount of effort I need to put in.
Yeah. So how would you, well, actually, what was your first fight like? Did you was you nervous or, how was you like in your first ever fight, whether that may be MMA boxing or kickboxing, what was you like?
So my first fight, funnily enough, was against somebody called Ben. But we trained at the same gym, so we trained at Manchester Top Team. Um, and yeah, so I sort of knew him, and um, low key, I knew I was better than him as a fighter because I've trained with him before, and I've sparred with him, and I knew I was a better fighter, so I wasn't really that nervous. Obviously, when you're fighting against hundreds of people, you are naturally nervous, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, am I going to win this fight or not? I was pretty confident in my own ability. But yeah, so when I did fight and I like landed a head kick and dropped him in like the first 10 seconds, I was sort of like, ref, stop it, because I know I'm better than him. So it felt more like a spar than a real fight. But if anything, when I'm fighting, I feel quite composed. Um, and yeah, I feel quite good in the actual fight, and I feel nerves, but they're good nerves. They're good nerves. I don't doubt myself too much.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. So, I've seen, your fights in martial art, like you are like very good, like very quick and technical and how would you sort of describe your fight style? And
Um,
what was that like inspired by if you did have any inspiration behind your fight style?
so I'd like to I'd call myself like a distance fighter. Like I'm quite a long range distance fighter, and I'd say that comes down to like who I was trained by initially. So I was trained by like the likes of like Dan Hall, Malachi Edwards, Callum Connor, and they have a particular style. Obviously, they're like so much better than me, like ridiculously better than me, of course. But I feel like I've obviously looked at how they train and mimic that technique. And then in terms of like fighters in themselves, like I've always like I know Muslim fighters don't like Conor McGregor, but I've always loved Conor McGregor. And like people like Style Bender as well. I've always preferred strikers, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I've always enjoyed strikers. So I feel like I have that long range sort of karate slash yeah, that's the type of style.
Yeah. So, as we know, the fight industry is a very, brutal industry, people can get hurt. So, where does that sort of confidence, come from? Like, where does that sort of self-belief that you have in yourself, like, where does that come from?
Um I wouldn't say I've always had this confidence. I just think I feel like it's just like worst comes to worst, you get hurt, but it's not that bad. I don't know. Maybe it's because I haven't been hurt too bad. And it's because of the people that I train with, the likes of the people that I train with, because they're in such a high level, I have confidence going into fighting my opponents because I'm like, are you that caliber? Are you national level or whatever the case is? So
Mm.
um I think that's where I get my confidence from. And yeah, so when I'm going to fight my opponents, I'm like, okay, like let's go, let's have some fun. And I enjoy fighting as well. Like I genuinely enjoy it. I enjoy being in the moment.
So, what would you say is your best highlight or your favorite moment you've had in the octagon or in the ring or, in like
Yeah,
your fights? Yeah.
I think it definitely have to be my fight in Prague because he just looked he it was to the point where it genuinely scared me a bit. Like I looked at him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm fighting him, and I didn't know what his skill level was as well because I had no footage of him fighting. So like just looking at him, I was kind of scared of it. But at the same time, when I was at the back with the boys, I just kind of psyched myself up and I'm like, you know what, like let's go. Like I have confidence in my own ability, and then yeah, I got him out there in like 25 seconds. So you know
Yeah.
we win.
Yeah, no, I commend you for your, resolve to go all the way to somewhere like Prague and to fight, a tough-looking opponent who you've had no footage of, to study. So, I commend that you have that resolve within yourself to even do that. What would you say would be the toughest moment you've had in the ring, or the moment you thought like
Um,
most like challenging, or like, oh man, like this is actually happening?
yeah. I think when I had my amateur debut, to be honest, I think I was sort of put in there as like a sacrificial lamb at the time because I thought they've kind of put me in there to lose. That's how I felt anyway. But yeah, when the first round happened, it just came really quick, and I was like, oh, I'm in a fight. Especially with I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like you're in a game sometimes. And when people do things in a fight like the emote, like they taunt you and stuff, it does affect you. It does affect you in a fight. You're like, oh my gosh, like I went for a kick and I missed the kick, and he looks at me like, you really tried to kick me there. But it does affect your confidence. But yeah, the round started so fast. It was a bit like, oh, I'm in a fight right now. But alhamdulillah, like I didn't get the decision, but it was a very close decision. I feel like I did more damage in the fight, but that was definitely a fight where I was like, yeah, it probably was my toughest fight. It was my toughest fight.
Okay. Well, obviously, I know like this is like the first time I'm like meeting you and interacting with you. Like you're very like a positive person. But obviously, once you step into a fight, it's like you go into a different kind of mentality. So how do you sort of flick that switch from the person you are outside the ring to the person you are inside the ring? Where does that killer mentality come from?
Well, to be honest, I don't necessarily think I have that killer mentality at times. I feel like I see fighting more as a competition than it is a fighting. So, like you might have heard like George St. Pierre talk about it before. Like they say he's a really good athlete, but they don't think he's a really good fighter. And I'm not insecure enough, but I would put myself in more in that box where I don't really want to hurt somebody like that. I don't really want to like how some people like Deontay Wilder's like I want a body on my record. Like I
Yeah,
would never say that because that's just not in me. Whereas I do know fighters that they have their past trauma or whatever the case is, and they want to present that to the world, and that's the only way they can represent their hurt and their whatever's happened to them in the past. So I feel like I don't necessarily have that trauma of the cases. Like alhamdulillah, I've had a good life. Um, but yeah, I see it treated more as a competition. Like I'm trying to beat that other person rather than I'm trying to hurt that other person. So that's how I differentiate it.
yeah. So what was it like to balance your work and your studies with fighting? Did you ever have to come at a crossroads where everything was just too much, to juggle? Like, what was it like handling your work and your studies with the fight game?
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like I still have that problem now. So even like a day in my life is like I'll wake up at 7 a.m. and then I'm out to uni for 8. I get into uni for 9. I'm in uni from 9 till 4, and then from 4 o'clock I do a bit of work on my own, and then I'm back in the gym for half 5. I'm training till 8. So, and then I'm then just repeating that like Monday to Friday. So it is hard, and I'm still working on it, and it's to the point where I don't ever want to get to a point where I don't have a love for the sport anymore. And I feel like that's where the balance comes in. Where it has been times where, like this time when I was in my final year of university, on my undergrad, I focused more on my education than training. So that's where I started boxing because boxing is just easier to train for boxing than it is for MMA. So I kind of put MMA to the side and trained boxing, and that's where I had my 2 boxing fights. But yeah, it's really difficult, and yeah, especially when you need to like provide for your family and other stuff like that, and you just need to provide for yourself as well. It is very difficult, but I'm still working out myself. Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned the boxing there because obviously, your most recent fight was on TV promotions, and that was probably unlike anything we've ever seen. The it was so well publicized, it was everywhere. So what was that experience like fighting on TV promotions, from the press conferences? I know, like there was a lot of trash talk said between
Mhm.
everyone, especially from your opponent. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was definitely an experience. It was pretty fun. Like I'm not really the type of person to trash talk. I'm a pretty positive person, and even then, when I am trash talking, I'll trash talk his fighting ability. I wouldn't try and say something about him as a person because I don't know him as a person. So I commented on his fighting ability. But yeah, the event in itself, it was obviously really well produced and everything. But yeah, the build up to the fight was funny. Yeah, it was funny. It was just fun. It was just fun to be honest.
Yeah. So, what was the press conference specifically like? Like, was you sort of taken back by the environment, the amount of people that were there to even watch, and like, or was you sort of, relaxed and was like, all right, well, this is just part of it anyway. This doesn't really
Yeah,
matter. It's just a fight. At the end of the day, So what was that? So what was your mentality like during the press conference?
yeah. Well, to be honest, in TV promotions in particular, Like I feel like I'm better than all of them, to be honest with you. Like I genuinely do. I don't want to sound arrogant or anything, but I train with like genuine MMA fighters. So I look around, I'm just like, I don't feel nervous around the actual fighters in itself. In terms of the stage itself, I just think it's a bit comical, and I'm just a bit like sometimes I even think, am I a bit above this? Like, is this really what I'm doing right now? But yeah, yeah, I just look around and they're obviously like they're doing it for clout, as we like to say. But yeah, for me, don't get me wrong, I like the publicity as well. Don't get me wrong, but um, I know that my actions, I know my fighting ability will back it up. So I would never start the beef necessarily. Like I let them talk and then I'd reciprocate, but I would never start it myself. If he wanted to be humble with me, I'll be humble with him. But yeah, we'll fight if we need to.
Yeah. So did the fight go exactly how you wanted to? Obviously, I know you got the clear decision win and you dominated throughout the fight. But did your opponent, present you with anything you were surprised by, or yeah, just how did the fight go from your point of view?
Uh, I thought I would have got him out there in a round. To be honest, I did. Not offensively, no. Like I didn't feel like trouble at any point in the fight. I wasn't like, oh, he's rocked to me or whatever. But I do think like he took a lot of punishment. He took a lot of punishment, and technically, like I just feel like I could have done things a bit different, like countering the counter. So starting the starting the initiating the engagement and then backing out and then going back in. And then I think I would have knocked him out. But I rocked him really badly, and I feel like I kept on rocking him. It's just I wasn't landing exactly on the chin. But yeah, I just think he was just very durable, which was like props to him because I thought he was just talking a lot and he wouldn't actually. When he became serious, he would back off. But fair play to him. So that's the only thing that really surprised me. I wasn't really scared of his offense or anything. Nothing surprised me there.
Okay, and I won't keep you for too long, so I'll ask you one final question. So you referenced it before, but just how far do you want to take this fight career? Do you have ambitions to take it far, or say if your work life begins to take over, will you take a back step? So yes, just how far what do you intend to take it?
At the end of the day, I think I am just taking it one step at a time, and I know the amount of effort that needs to go into it to treat it seriously. And even now, as an amateur athlete, I'm only training once a week. Not once a week, sorry, once a day. Which, if you wanted to be a pro and you want to really take it seriously, you need to be going twice. So you need to be going once in the morning, once in the evening. And that's the minimum. That's to be a I'm just to call yourself a professional fighter. So I know how the levels and I know the amount of energy you need to put into the sport to take it seriously. So I'm realistic with myself. So that's why I take it one step at a time. If it does become, like, especially with like sponsors and stuff, if I could get sponsors and be like, you know what, I can try and really dedicate myself and really push myself to pursue fighting full time, then it presents that opportunity. But I do feel like I'm quite intelligent as well, and I have other opportunities. Like I'm studying to be a design tech teacher now, and I'm trying to pursue my own jewelry business as well. So I do have other avenues, but yeah, I just really enjoy fighting, and I'm just taking it one step at a time. Yeah,
Oh, well, wonderful. Thank you very much for your time, and yeah, thank you very much.
awesome. Thank you, brother. Thank you.